Good afternoon, everyone. We're getting close to the top of the hour, and we will go ahead and get started. Just going to give everybody a chance to hop onto the GoToWebinar. So excited to talk to you guys here shortly. Thank you, everyone. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started. So hello, everyone, and welcome. I want to thank you all for joining us today. We really appreciate your time. We have about an hour together today, so we're going to provide an overview of CaseWorthy as well as our solution specific to domestic violence, victim services programs, and things of that nature. And we'll certainly have time throughout to take questions. With GoToWebinar, just some housekeeping details. Typically, that defaults everybody to be on mute so that we can have a large group like this. It cuts down on the background noise and things like that. So if you do have any questions, you'll notice that you have a question area where you can submit those questions. So feel free to ask those throughout. I'm going to be monitoring those as well as my colleague Melissa today. So we'll try and keep an eye out for those and try and answer those as we go through as well. All right. So I'm Casey McKee. I come to you as a senior sales executive here at CaseWorthy. I've been here for about 2 years. I've been in software case management for about 10 years as well. I actually sit on several nonprofit boards. We work specifically with shelters in the domestic violence realm as well. Also come to you with a background in employment and overseeing youth programs as a case manager. So just definitely understand the space and, maybe some of those obstacles as a organization that you guys might be going through as well. So I'll be going over today just an overview of CaseWorthy and going through some slides, some things that we can't necessarily show you in a demonstration, but we can speak to those. And then Melissa, my colleague, who's going to introduce herself here in a second, is going to do the demonstration portion of that for you all. So Melissa, did you want to give us an introduction?
Sure, Casey, thank you so much. I'm excited for everyone that's going to be here today and demo to you. Just like Casey, I've been with CaseWorthy about 2.5 years now. Prior to that, I was a solutions specialist and I help organizations find great solutions for themselves. Prior to that, I worked with students who dropped out of high school, was a case manager and an administrator of a system for years. So just excited to be here with you today, show you a lot of the ins and outs of the solution. And if you have any questions, please type them in that question box, that chat box, and we'll be happy to answer them.
All right, thank you, Melissa. All right, so just taking a peek of what the agenda is going to look like today. As I mentioned, I'll go over some information about CaseWorthy as an organization, and then Melissa will go into the demonstration. We're going to show you some standard functionality that we have in the application about the navigation, the look and feel of things, and what some of the setup and different tools are that we have in the system. And then we'll get specifically into details related to client case management, as well as intake and victim services related to domestic violence, and absolutely spend some time on reporting. And as I mentioned, all throughout, if you guys have questions, we're going to monitor those and we'll try and get to those as well. All right, so who we are. So our mission at CaseWorthy is to serve as a technology beacon that empowers organizations to enrich lives. This is our executive team here. And so with that being said, our team comes with a pretty impressive resume. Each one of our executive team staff members has worked in the nonprofit realm. If we're looking at this slide in particular, Nina Wilson has helped implement one of the statewide contracts that we have that is specific to domestic violence and victim services, as well as sexual assault. And so she really just understands the process, and they all come to you with a nurturing type of personality and experience where we're able to really speak to the specific programs that you guys would be working with, as well as the sensitivity and the nature of that data as well. So really our goal is to help your staff have the ease of use in a system, allow them to be more efficient in their daily operations so that they can spend more time with their clients and not so much time doing that duplicate data entry and things that you might be battling with currently. So just a little bit about the different verticals that we serve. You can see there's quite a variety here. And case management is so important to address the needs of, specifically organizations where, resources have an increase, but we also are asking our case managers to do more with less, right? And so at CaseWorthy, we really sat down as a team to discuss how we could do more and lessen the stress on our customers. And we're really trying to provide an effective forward-thinking case management system. Now, because of that thought process and being more proactive in the system, we're really able to work within any type of vertical because of the nature and the flexibility in the application. And Melissa's going to definitely show you some of those details as well as she goes through the demonstration today. But really trying to focus everything on the emergent needs of your clients so that you have a 360-degree view of what resources are going to be available to them. So in speaking to the variety of types of clients that we have, here's just to name a few, some of our partners that we look at or that we work with in the system. We have about 130 plus clients that are using CaseWorthy in a variety of different types of ways. Again, our focus today is going to be the domestic violence and victim services. And so one of our major partners that we have is the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council, and that's a statewide contract that we work with within the state of Georgia and working with a variety of types of domestic violence organizations all throughout the state, as well as sexual abuse. We have compliance reporting related to that, and just really a very interesting partnership that we're able to accommodate them as they continue to grow and bring additional partners under their wings. So you hear us say this quite a bit today that we are an enterprise-wide solution, and we have a number of features that are specific to the victims services and domestic violence programming. Again, Melissa will be going into detail and a lot more depth of that, so I'll just briefly talk about some of these different features that we have in the system that allow us to accommodate organizations, as we know everybody does things differently. With that being said, you're able to make configurations or adjustments based off of different rules. So on the back end, if you want to, you know, um, take into consideration data that you've already collected and, include a condition, and then based on that condition, you're asking, specific questions, you're able to do that. You can have custom fields in the application, um, dashboards, any type of information that's going to be presented to your staff members that's going to help them be more efficient in their daily workday. You can do that in the application. We also have, which we'll touch on security as well, but we have different roles and menu items that we're able to add or restrict access based on those security permissions in the system as well. A lot of that's included in our baseline product, and then we can tweak it to, meet those needs. So for example, if you were doing some crisis documentation or anonymous, hotline intakes and things of that nature, and that person is only working specifically with intakes, and maybe they're not necessarily going to need access to confidential case notes or things of that nature, we're able to adjust that based on that individual's role in the application. We also can do things through a variety of workflows, which kind of guides your staff members through each step and what type of data fields that we need to collect, so they know, what assessments and what questions do we need to ask them, and things of that nature as well. Um, Specifically, we also have a self-service portal, and that could be for self-reporting and updates so that your clients can enter in that data as needed, and it'll automatically update into the application for the staff to have access to. We also have incident tracking in real time. And with that, we can set up these different workflows, as I mentioned, and automations to really create efficiencies in the data collection, and even notifications based on that data collected to ensure that your case managers can easily and quickly access, those specific needs of their clients. Um, as far as security goes, again, we work in this space, so we are HIPAA compliant. Our system is entirely cloud-based, so as long as you have access to the internet, you'll have access to our platform. With that being said, if you want more information about the security that we have in place, we have some documentation we can share with you all as well. All right. And then again, just getting kind of specific to our victim services here. So really, we would just want to offer you all with a quality case management system, and Melissa will show you that today. Oftentimes in domestic violence programs, victim services, there are a lot of silos, and you have to use different systems because of the nature of the data and those security standards, and that fear that you're going to use the same system across the organization, although that data might need to be restricted based on access to the application. And really, a truly functional case management system is going to allow your staff to use that in one system. And it's going to be for all of those programs to assist in the provision of services so that you do have that 360-degree view for each client, and CaseWorthy can accommodate you and allow you to do that. And really, we also are able to offer not only adhere to compliance reporting, but also make it easier for organizations to go beyond those requirements and manage their data further, so you can truly see your impact that you're making on your community as well with those clients you're servicing. All right. So also some area that we'll spend some time on today is going to be reporting. We have a variety of types of reports in the application. Those are going to include operational reports, which are reports that you can pull out demographic data or specific service or program data. Again, a lot of different reports where you can put in your own parameters or timeframes, and you could take it to your board and you could say, hey, look how many clients we served recently, or look how many intakes we've done just in the month of April. Right, so a lot of options as far as that goes. We also have an analytics tool in the system where you can kind of generate and create your own reporting in the system and drag and drop different data elements to really make those your own. I mentioned we have compliance reporting in the application. Our team has a group of staff members that work specifically on compliance reporting. So we'll make sure that we're always adhering to those standards for you all. And then lastly, we also have a tool that we call CaseBot, which is a business intelligence tool in the system. And essentially any data that you've entered into the system, you'll be able to generate reports and relevant data that you would need in the application if you need a supporting graph or documentation or there's logic behind that. We offer CaseBot as a business intelligence tool to, again, create that ad hoc reporting in the application. All right, so just pointing it back to our mission statement here, and really our goal is to provide your staff with an efficient tool to help them with their daily operations. We want to see them work efficiently in the system. We want them to like the system that they're using. And we also like to empower them in the system as well. So should you move forward with CaseWorthy, I talk about a lot of the configurations in the system and things like that, but we also train you on that tool. We train you on the tool that we use to make these adjustments so that we can empower your staff to make those changes moving forward. So say, for example, you have a funder that has now changed some of their requirements and you need to ask for additional documentation from them or a demographic field that you typically didn't require. Your staff will be able to go in and make those changes as needed. We like to say we like to teach you how to fish. So we absolutely want you guys to have the same tools that we're using to get the system up and running for you so that as you move forward, you're able to continue to grow in the application. All right, so at this point, I'm going to go ahead and pass things over to my colleague Melissa so that she can show you in detail the application itself.
Thank you, Casey.
You're welcome. And I'll keep an eye out for questions. I saw a few come in, so thank you for that, guys, and we'll keep taking a look through those.
Let's see, Casey. I'm having a little bit of trouble sharing my screen.
I can make you the presenter if that helps.
There, that's better. Thank you so much.
Of course.
All right. Can you just verify you can see it?
I sure can.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Casey shared a great amount of information with us today, and so we're going to put some of that, to application here in the demonstration so you all can see that. I'm going to start out with some basic kind of navigation and information, high-level things about CaseWorthy, and then we'll get into specific items that we have that are part of our baseline for our DV and our SA clients, and we can talk a little bit more about them into detail as well. So I'm logged out currently right now. CaseWorthy is a SaaS solution, so every user that would access CaseWorthy would have their own username and password. We're accessible anywhere that you have access to an internet browser, whether or not that's your mobile device, a tablet, or a computer. And we are what you call a responsive design. So we're going to scale and fit the design or the size of the device that you're on. Today I'm on a little bit bigger monitor, so my screen's a little bit wider and things like that. Whereas if I was on my tablet or out in the field taking intake, I would scale down to fit that device without losing any type of functionality. So we get logged in here. And as it loads, it's going to land on the last client that I worked with. That's how Casey and I have our demo instance set up. This is all a demo instance, so I like to say that so no one thinks they're looking at real information. So if Casey and I were running our own organization, this may or may not be how we'd have our system set up. So you can see that the last client that I worked with was Maddie Harris. She actually doesn't have that much on her dashboard, and I know that's kind of a foreign term for some people that are watching this today. The screen I landed on is her client dashboard. If I go find a client that I've worked a little bit more with, and I will talk about this little video player here. GoToWebinar does not like the pop-ups, so I apologize for some of the delay you might get with that. These are video tutorials that's embedded throughout CaseWorthy that teaches you how to use certain features. So you're going to see those today pop up as I move from screen to screen. Because we do quite a few demonstrations, I leave them so people can see them, but you can always, if you're inside the solution, say don't show this again, but you always have access to click the little camera up here and watch that. So I like to point that out. So Maddie, I was working with Maddie before the demonstration today. Again, she's new, she doesn't have that much information. But for example, Casey and I work with Michael Jordan a lot. And so you notice his dashboard is more thorough, it has a lot more information in it. He's been in a lot of programs, and his dashboard has grown as he has moved through the organization with us. And the more services he gets, things like that, the dashboard has kind of visualized those items, okay? Maddie's dashboard is set up the same way, but hers does not populate until she gets that information, okay? So going through some kind of setup items here, and we'll get into that a little bit more as we get toward the end of the demonstration today, but just so you kind of say, what am I looking at here? You can see that I'm logged in, and the under my name is my role, okay? And Casey mentioned that we talk about securities a little bit, and we will, but we're happy also to get in that conversation with you separately, because every single organization has different security needs. So when we talk about that we're an enterprise-wide organization or system, that means we can do a multitude of different things when it comes to how you separate and segment your data. So you can see the organization I'm logged in as is CaseWorthy. I can have more than one, and I may or may not have access as my user to see more than one organization. What provider am I logged in as, and what role? Now, we just don't turn CaseWorthy on for you and say good luck. When you come on board with CaseWorthy, we have business analysts and program managers that sit with you and do what we call a discovery. And we go through how should your system be set up. And I always talk about CaseWorthy as an enterprise-wide solution as kind of like a solar system. And your client over here is your sunshine, and your sun, and everything, your organization, your providers, your programs, and all your case management efforts are like the planets that revolve around them. And they can be in multiple organizations, they can be served by different providers, they can be in multiple programs. Again, some organizations work like that, some don't, okay? When you go to set your system up, a lot of times this is how you end up reporting. So as a large organization, like a state organization, for example, you might have a statewide system that's this whole enterprise, and then you have local counties, and then inside those local counties, you have a variety of shelters that are your providers. There could be locations, there's a wide variety of ways that you can do it. And then my role down here defines how I have access to my organization, my providers, and the programs that I have. Again, I just like to talk to it at the beginning because it just lets you understand some of the privacy that you can have, even with inside of your CaseWorthy system, because especially with DVNSA, it's very sensitive information. We want to make sure that the correct people have the correct things that they can see and do in the system. I am in an admin role, so I'm in what CaseWorthy calls their baseline all features role, which means I pretty much can do anything in the system. I can make changes, I can move these dashboard parts around, I can add another program if I want to, a lot of different features. You may have one or two people that have those admin rights. Other than that, others will have probably a more slimmed down role, and you have the ability to build those roles through our app builder. As Casey talked about, inside of our solution, anywhere you see app builder, it means that you can make changes inside of the system. So this app builder tool is what we use to help you get set up, but it also helps us define the different roles that people can have inside the system. You could have 100 roles if you want, or you could have 2. It's totally your choice. I'm going to change my role just so you can see the difference. You can see I have lots of items here on my left navigation bar, a lot of variety of case management options, and a lot of clickable things on my left for nav. Also here at the top, these are all different areas that I have access to: reporting, admin. If I change my role to my program manager role, for example, actually I don't want my program manager role, I want my case management role. I lose my reporting option, as well as a couple other features. And I don't have near as much information here that I can click. So my role defines what I can see and do in the system. And again, you have full access to be able to have to edit and update those roles. For today, I'm going to be in my DVSA role. And to kind of explain what CaseWorthy does, CaseWorthy has a variety of already existing items inside the system. Like we already have a place for case notes. We already have a place for services. However, just like Casey said in our PowerPoint presentation, you still have the ability to do configurations, put in your specific forms. It's almost like a jumping off point, like a diving board. And so what I'm going to show you today is what we call our baseline domestic violence areas, okay? And you can take some of these forms and you can say, okay, we could use that out of the box, or we might want to make some changes on that. So what we're going to do first is we're going to add a client. And before I do that, I'm just going to go through some of the different areas up here at the top. You notice there's some areas I can navigate to. This little briefcase or toolbox is where you're going to do your case management piece, okay? Different people refer to it as different kind of titles. But this is where probably 90% of the work or the data gets entered. This area here where it looks like two buildings, this is what we call organizations. And I'm going to come back to this probably halfway through our demo and talk about organizations a little bit. It's kind of the organizations area are third parties that affect your client in some way, shape, or form. They could be providers that are providing some other type of service. It could be resources. It could be how we do approvals on items. So we'll come back and we'll go through these a little bit with more detail. I can click on our setup, the little wrench here, and different ways to set up the system. Okay, we won't get into this thoroughly today, but we'll touch on a couple of things. Our reporting area, as well as in this little birdhouse, is kind of my CaseWorthy is what we call it. It's my staff dashboard. And you may choose when you turn on your CaseWorthy system to say, when I log in as a staff member, I want to go to my dashboard, or I want to go to a reporting dashboard. And you can absolutely do that. And just like the participant dashboard, I can configure this through an app builder. So maybe I want my widgets to look a little bit different, or I want my icons or things to be colored. I want to link up some policies and procedures for my staff to have. I do have that capability here in my own staff area. That's not completely focused on a client perspective, okay? So here we're going to add a new client. In our baseline for DV, we do have a quick hotline intake as well as a call center intake. I'm going to do the full intake for us today just so you guys can get a thorough kind of visualization of what that is as well. And if anybody would like me to go back and do the quick intake, we can. I can show you the difference between the two as well. CaseWorthy does have a basic just add client intake form that gets someone settled inside the system. It's a basic demographic form, if you've ever seen one, right? Name, things like that. Again, and I know I repeat myself, I feel like saying every time I say app builders, people should stand up out of their chair. But if you want to make changes to forms, this is where our analysts and we'll train you as well to use the app builder tool to make changes. Anything with a star is required, for example. So you may say, well, Melissa, we don't require social security number. Well, via the app builder, we can say, we no longer want that piece required, okay? So this workflow is what we call it, so goes into more detail than just that intake form. You notice over here on the left-hand side, I have lots of different areas, and you notice these have locks on them, okay? So by the time I go through one form, then I go to the next form, and it basically like unlocks it and moves me through it. There can be conditional rules in these forms that say, well, if the caller said this, then ask them this question and move throughout entering this person inside of the CaseWorthy system, okay? So I'm just gonna put in some information. This is gonna be a new client. They called via phone. Again, these are just forms throughout the system. And my screen is rather large. I'm gonna square this in a little bit so you guys can see it. We call this a workflow. I'm gonna age myself when I talk about me doing case management. When I was a case manager, this was essentially the packet of information you would hand out, okay? So I'm gonna type in my new client. Her name is Lauren Wells. She is called through our hotline. she is my caller, but you notice that when I had the opportunity, my caller could be different than my victim, okay? You see some automation here. When I put in my birthday, it automatically calculated my age. I can do that throughout the system. Based on what your drop downs require, or maybe your reporting requirements, you notice that some of my items are set to data not collected yet, but I can automatically set some of these. I can also set, to not be data not collected. It could be something else too. So you completely have those choices. You've seen some drop down options. We also have some check all that apply. So if I wanted to check more than one answer, I could do that here so that I have 2 answers. You can tab through this. I clicked through it. Some people have asked me that question before. It's just absolutely, your preference when you do data entry. How was the phone line called? They came through the hotline. It was answered during the day. It was not left on the message. It's English. They don't have any of these requirements. And then here's some contact information. So she gave us her cell phone number. Again, just making some numbers here. Email address, confirm an email. CaseWorthy can email from the system. You can email your clients. It comes as part of our baseline. You can also text. Texting has a small fee to it, and we use a third party to send out those text message, but it's something that you can do as well. How did you hear about us when you're talking to them on the phone? Did you see us on a billboard? Where, did somebody else reach out for you? And then what's the reason for the call? This is a DV call. And then, is there children involved? Currently, she has no children, and she's not currently pregnant. If I answered yes to any of these questions, we would possibly get more questions about those children in there as well, okay? And then what shelter will the client be enrolled in? If you do have sheltering in here, this would go back to those organizations, okay, that I mentioned earlier that I said we'd revisit. And that can populate a list for you to say, hey, where will we put this person that's calling in? When I press save, it's going to move us on to the next form. This is that little video I was telling you. It's wanting to teach us how to use this. We do have a Google lookup. So if we start doing a type ahead, I'm in South Carolina, so it's going to start looking up Google addresses in South Carolina. I don't know these addresses, so I'll just click on one of them. I can verify this address, and anywhere in the system, we also give latitude and longitude. That helps us to be able to do like hot mapping if you're interested to export your data and do some hot mapping. You can also do referrals to say, hey, if Melissa lives at this address or we put her in this shelter, or actually I put in a person by the name of Lauren. If Lauren lives at this address, then how far to do a referral? Because we track all of our addresses and it verifies it, whether or not that's a business and so on. So that way, if our client needs to walk somewhere or catch a bus, we know exactly where they are. We do track families in the CaseWorthy system. So if Lauren here had more than one family member, we could update everybody at the same time with the same type of information. Okay. Then we get into our abuse questions. When did the abuse begin? We started seeing our first abuse back July of last year. So we have when that started happening, the length of the abuse, so it's been 1 to 5 years. Is it a boyfriend or a girlfriend, or who? Again, these drop downs could be configurable to be yours. If there are any other secondary victims, if I had marked children, then this would populate with that. Or if this was a caller that wasn't my victim, but had and there was a spouse involved, you could also see the spouse there as well. What type of abuse are we seeing? Physical abuse, sexual abuse, psychological abuse. I'll mark a couple here that you guys can see those. Did the abuser have a weapon? Yes. Has this person threatened you? Yes. We have our weapons that they chose to use. Again, we have our LAP questions here if you want to pull those over. Has anyone ever used a weapon against you? You can weight these questions so they come out on the other side for reporting as well. I can track my abuser. CaseWorthy has a full incident management system. So those can be people that we track. Maybe they're in jail, or maybe you're going to have to go to court against that person, that you can absolutely do that. I can also look people up in the system if I want to. So I can look them up by Greg. There's nobody there with Greg, so I can add a new person that is my abuser. Now you notice that's the only thing that's required. But I do have lots of other questions about the person who is my abuser. I can check for duplicates just to say, hey, are we sure this person doesn't exist? And yes, they're a new entity. Okay, they're part of those people that affect our clients in some way, shape, or form that we could look up in that org tab. Okay. Any type of identifying information. If I don't have their zip code, I can always put 00000 in. I think I said enough zeros there, and save this. There's also a relationship here of what they are. They were a friend or boyfriend here. Okay, so now I have my abuser with there. Is my abuser with me? No, I've been able to get away, track their location. Do they know where I work? Do they know where I attend school? Have I contacted the police? I'm reading these to you, even though I know you guys can probably read my screen just as easily. Again, sometimes it's hard. I want to show you all these, but go in through these so that you can see some of these. And again, this is our long hotline form. You may want to do this a little bit different and do a shorter form, and you can absolutely do that. I can attach a counselor. I can also do an appointment service if I need to by clicking and scheduling. This will schedule something on their calendar. I may have a hard time here because I actually don't have an appointment service in my system. So I may not be able to show you the rest of these. I can enter a case note here that will get tracked in our case note system if you want to do this. And I can leave a case note to voice to text. I spoke with Lauren on the phone today about her abuser. Okay, when I press done, it puts it in my case note box, and I can continue to add to this case note if I would like. I can also create a template for this if I'd like. It gives it a type. Maybe I want this to be hotline. How can I share this information? Is it attached to any type of program? And is it a read only? I can also add a signature anywhere throughout the CaseWorthy system I'd like to add a signature. And so as this pops up, I can type in my name and then my role. And I can sign. I can sign with my mouse. I can also sign with my touch screen, which this computer is not, but if you had a tablet or my other lap, my other side of my computer here, I could do that. Or you can use plug and play mouse pad or something like that if you're interested. So now I have my case note. Again, I don't have a service to be able to do here. I'm not sure if it'll let me save. So then you get some validation rules here. Of do we need appointment service field is required? Does the client need to have a danger assessment? So you get to see some of our conditional ruling here. I don't know. There we go. So I can take that that appointment away on this form, and I don't have to. I can continue on to my next area. Oh, I said I didn't want my appointment here. Okay, it's going to want me to move through this. So I'm just going to finish my workflow here so that you guys can see the areas I've done. These were additional survey questions that I could have moved through, but I didn't have any further information or that service, so I couldn't. My workflow is complete for the items that I've done so far. When I press done, though, I will be able to find my client if inside of the system. So if I look for Lauren, my client's here. So it didn't lose her information I started with, even though I couldn't have set that appointment. I can now go and finish any type of items I want to through this dashboard. Okay, so if I wanted to finish any type of information about when the abuse began or anything to that effect, I could do that. Okay, so we can do, again, we can do a quick intake. Here's the quick one. I'll show this to you and the difference between the two. Here's a new one. The other one had, what, 18 forms on it or something to that effect? This one has 2. It has the similar caller field And then it has my add that further information, whether or not, what type of abuse have they been through and that type of information. And then it saves. It's a much quicker hotline or quick intake version of that as well. And then between how organizations work with their clients, then they can pick up and do the other items with them as they need. Okay. So I'm going to work with Maddie, though, because that was the person I was prepared to work with and showed for you today. So I'm going to load Maddie. You notice we have her picture. And I'm going to go to our, again, you can see her intake and our case management summary if we had that, if she spoke to a volunteer and the call-in reason for those. But I'm going to go back to this dashboard. And I can enter that same form, like I said. I know you guys don't want to see me type through that again, but is there any type of drug or alcohol association, what type of abuse she had? If you have other forms, you can absolutely add those in here. We can capture protection orders. So if there is any type of order against her abuser or any other type of situation, then you can put that in here. Just putting some numbers in here. We applied for this back in March. It began on April 1st. Currently, it's open-ended. There's not a deny date, and the reason for that is domestic violence. It's a restraining order. I can put in a case note. I can restrict that from other programs, and I can also upload it. So if you ask your clients to bring in any type of documentation, you can also document that as well so that you all have that on file. I can simply browse my computer for that. This is going to open up my file folder, and I can bring in any type of information that we want that we've scanned. If you are on your tablet or a phone, a mobile device, when you say attach a scanned document or browse, it will also allow you to turn your camera on and take pictures. So they use that term scan kind of interchangeably, so it's not just like a scanner from a printer. Okay. If you're in an office and you use a scan kind of document, or like a 3-in-1 or something like that, you can pull that from a repository if you all have something like that and would like to do that. And that's the difference between these two buttons. Okay. I don't currently have any, well, I'll browse now. I'll attach something just so we have something in here so you can see that. Don't know why it's so complicated sometimes for me to pick something. Put that in there. I'll save this. Oh, document types required. Again, these document types are the ones that you choose to put in that drop down. Okay. So now I have this document. I can edit this if I want to. I can go back and look at it, but you notice it's just not, it's in a different place. So if I ever want to come back, I can also add other documents and items here. And my documents and checklists, it's under my case management area. So here's the one I just loaded in. And I can then view this image if I want to. I can edit it, I can delete it, I can download them, I can share them with other people as well. Again, I've seen this a lot with our DV and SA centers, especially with having to have documentation to go to court or any other area, just to be able to help their client to make sure they're keeping those items. So we've been through our domestic violence assessment. We've also talked through protection orders. We do have injury screening. And so hard, I mean, for you all that does this every day, I can take a new assessment. Okay, and I'm going to attach this if I wanted to an enrollment, I could do that. And I'll talk about program enrollments here in just a moment. Have I had a SANE exam? Yes or no? So we can do your nursing exam, is the SANE exam. A lot of times the organizations we work with, they either upload the SANE exam because it came from the hospital or something to that effect. Or you could do it and redo it in CaseWorthy. It's just there's a lot of areas and configuration for that exam. My client did have her SANE exam. When was the SANE exam? I can put in, I guess I shouldn't do that because it would conflict with my dates. So I'm gonna put on here. This could be a click box if you don't want to type it in. Would you like to see a nurse examiner? So even if they've had one, if you have a nurse examiner on site, would you still like to see someone? Have you ever been choked or strangled? Lots of questions here about their actual abuse. Okay. And you notice I have some conditional rules here because I said yes, I was strangled. Then I get this this question here to be able to answer this. Otherwise, I would not have had that option. I'm going to work through some of these. I know sometimes it's not so fun to hear me just kind of click through these, but as you guys can see my screen and read it as well, if there's anything that you'd like Casey and I to go through further, we can absolutely do that. Have I ever lost consciousness? Yes. When was your last head injury? Everything happened to me on 3/15. Okay. I had this once. I don't currently have any things that you can observe and to be able to save this. Now, again, oh, I had some things that I did not save, right? So I apologize there. We can take this injury screening, and it may be because I'm not in a program, and we can expand on this. So I have a couple organizations I've worked with that I've helped bring onto CaseWorthy that have their own exams. They upload their visuals of where they mark clients where they've had abuse and things like that so that you can see that. My assessment gave me an error, and I apologize. I hate when I get errors when I demo because I don't have my client currently in a program and wants me to attach this assessment, so that's my fault. I apologize for that. I will show you program enrollment here in just a minute so that you can see that. But so that way you just kind of get an idea of injury screening that we do have. And then from here, one of the last things that we have is also our sexual assault tracking. It works similar to our domestic violence questions, except it is different. When was the date and time of the assault? And then you have, of course, different options that are more sexually related as opposed to just DV related. So I have my variety of different options here when the assault happened, who was the perpetrator, again, just to kind of see how the system connects together. I can look this person up, or I can add a new one here. And then I can also say, was, law enforcement identified? If I'm tracking the law enforcement, who was it? Okay. And then the assault location. Here comes that address lookup again, right? Where did this incident take place? And make sure that, it's for some organizations we work with too, if that incident pops up or that place pops up multiple times, we understand that's a bad area for our clients, or that we should alert, law enforcement, hey, we've seen 5 clients that have had an issue in this particular area. Just being able to track that data and be able to see that. So those are many of our items that are what we call in our baseline. Now, again, like Casey stated, we work with organizations through a whole state that works with many shelters that are DV and SA that utilize CaseWorthy and have a lot of their own forms and things that they've also configured in the system that builds upon our baseline items to help them in the system. We have another statewide program that does the what I call it, Safe at Home or address verification program, where it protects their client that's been part of DV or SA, their address. So that way they have a state address and the state keeps up with their real address, in CaseWorthy helps them with that and manages those addresses and those address history. I think about 35 of our 50 states have that program. So I'm not sure if your state that you're on, that you're with me today has that, but they do have that, in CaseWorthy does help in a state with that. We also have several children's areas as well that utilize CaseWorthy for domestic violence and sexual assault as well. They use our baseline, so many of the items, the call center, as well as some of the screening tools that you've seen today, as well as built their own. So since you've seen that first, because I want to make sure that we get those items and you get to see those, I want to talk some more general CaseWorthy. Again, my little error there that I caused because I didn't have my person enrolled in a program. CaseWorthy is program focused. So if we decide we're going to serve someone, what program are they going to be part of? And as part of our setup, and our analysts work with you to say, hey, programs define what kind of services we can give, what assessments that you have. So maybe it's just a domestic violence program, but maybe it's program 1, 2, and 3 because they come from different funding. So with that, I can always add a new program to my client. And these are just programs that Casey and I have in our demo instance. So they're going to be in our Hope Shelter program. Is it the family, the individual, or both the family and individual? Again, we do a lot of family tracking. I'll show that to you here quickly because I know I'm running out of time. I can schedule a follow-up to make sure my team follows up with this client in a certain amount of days or time. And I can also assign a case manager if I'd like to. So if I were to assign, of course, myself, or I could assign Casey, that case manager will get an email right away that says, hey, you have a new case assignment. Now, this is a template. You can choose to have this look and feel however you would like, your own logos, or maybe you don't want to send that person's information. It could just say, hey, you have a new case assignment, please log in. And then how do I want this information? It can be shared, okay? So now I've enrolled Maddie into a new program that I could potentially take that assessment with earlier that I was working with my injury screening. Once she's enrolled in a program, this little action gear, again, I have a lot of my features turned on. I can work from this action gear to be able to work with my client, to be able to assign services, authorizations, things to that nature. Or over here in my case management, I can also navigate to other areas. I can track case notes like we talked about earlier, and I did enter that case note for Lauren in when I was working with her, but I can add multiple case notes. I can print selected case notes and filter them. I can see case notes and reporting as if I'd like to too. I talked about documents and checklists. You can upload any information you'd like in the CaseWorthy system. We can become that repository for you. We talked about program enrollments. We just went through that, but we also we can do a lot of referrals. And I love referrals. When I used to do case management, I'd love to sit at a table, like we used to do it at the end of each quarter with local organizations to say, hey, you sent me X amount of referrals this month, and this is what happened with them. We can also refer internally. So if you have different departments, you can refer to a variety of different departments as well. So maybe your organization not only serves clients in the DV or SA realm, but they also provide workforce services to try to help them find a job or do something differently. Then you can refer them to workforce services or things of that nature as well. And then we can also refer to providers. Providers are going to be tracked here in this org tab. And when I add a new provider, I can base it on an enrollment. So that I just enrolled Maddie into the Hope Shelter, and I can refer her to a very specific either service or provider that I want her to see. And now you notice there's a distance here. We talked about that earlier when we were talking about the Google address verification. That distance is the distance between Maddie's address that she's currently located in, that could be a shelter, it could be her address, compared to where I'm going to send her to. So it's 4.99 miles to be able to send her to get some job coaching. If I selected that, then I can also map it. So I clicked out of it. Let me go back to that so that you can see that. So I can look for job coaching here, and then I can map it. And it's going to show me my options I have to be able to send her to be able to see that. So I can select her CaseWorthy and then her address, or the other provider, they're all CaseWorthy. That's why I have so many in my drop down, and be able to actually get a location and mapping if I want to do that. Okay, I can always, it works just like mine's in Google Maps, so I can look at it from a perspective like this. I could print this out for my client. It's giving me my street view, and I could print it out. I could do a lot of times bus routes and things like that in Google as well if I'm interested. Again, in my demo instance, all of mine here are CaseWorthy, so I apologize for that. But I think you kind of understand where we're going there. I can choose a particular person, and when I choose this person, even though this person is not part of CaseWorthy, I can actually send them an email that says, hey, CaseWorthy, at this particular job coaching area, I'm sending this client to you, okay, and actually do a referral for her. I don't think anything else is required. I can send a text message as well. I can put in a case note, and we can begin to build all of the different areas that we refer our client to. Because I know when I did case management, my clients needed more than just what I could help them get their GED and high school diploma. Many times I needed food referrals and a variety of other things. I can't show these all to you today. I'm just kind of clicking in so you can see what's on my screen. Again, these are all part of baseline. Casey and I are happy to go through any of these in more detail about how you can build out your CaseWorthy system even bigger, more thoroughly than the assessments that I was able to go through with you today. You notice there's kind of client alerts, client incidents. I can print ID badges here. I can give out my clients gift cards and track all of that information as well. Families is something I get asked a lot. What do you feel like CaseWorthy does really, really well? I think CaseWorthy does families really well. I've worked with several different database systems, and I think it's something that we far exceed others in. I can track all the different family members. I can take people in and out of families. I can track services as a family. I can track case notes as a family, address history. So if you have a client that moves around a lot, any of that information we can do together as a family. And I can look at data as a family or as an individual. So when you think about your shelters or your organizations, we serve 50 families, but we serve 200 individuals, okay? So you do have the flexibility to do that. I did mention services, so I apologize. I didn't click on services earlier. But with inside of services, you do have the ability to be able to really track all those individual transactions that you're doing with a client. I say it's like a cash register for case management because you really get to see all the different items that you're doing with your client. So if I had services here that I could click through, we can do that. Let me click back on Michael Jordan so that you can just get a good view of all his services. You can tell who Casey and I go to demo here. So when I click on individual services, these are all the services that throughout this time period from, I think Michael joined us last July, that we've given him. Okay, they can have dollar amounts or values attached to them if you want. They're attached to different programs. You notice this is from one program, this is from a different program, and then what are those individual services? If you ever want to add a new one, you, of course, let's see, some of these I don't have services attached to. There we go. I can choose that service that I want and then put in all the pertinent information about that. Again, to me, it's just like your transaction record. What all are we doing with our clients? It's good counts, really validation of how we're assisting our clients get through their day. Okay. I'm gonna go back to Maddie here just because I had her pulled up. We talked through families. Again, we have a variety of assessments. You saw me go through several here with domestic violence. I do have a child abuse risk that was not on my specialty items that you all can see. So if I want to go through this as well, whether or not there's a future risk of neglect and then things about that, I can again, now I can attach it to Maddie's program enrollment here and move through this, but unfortunately we don't have time to go through this. But is there going to be a future neglect? Could it be common? And then we have some scores here, and then we could take this assessment again to kind of evaluate whether or not we're moving to the direction we want to do. And most assessments are like that. Most assessments are forms or data collection tools that you will revisit multiple times to be able to see that. Okay, so this is our offender screening tool as well. So we have some questions here again that are a little bit more detailed under our assessment area for domestic violence. CaseWorthy has thousands of assessments that you all have access to. So as part of your organization, maybe do you not only do domestic violence and services in that aspect, but you also, again, I mentioned this earlier, maybe you do work readiness or employment as well. You're happy to use any of those assessments, be able to serve your client. And they work very similar in the fact that I just want to take a new assessment, and this is just as my client work ready, and I can work through that and see. We do have scheduling, so we can put an appointment on Maddie's schedule. It can attach to my staff schedule. We can receive notifications about it. We can create class schedules and workshops so that people can register for them and have those available as well. Okay, I did promise I'd come back over here to orgs, so I apologize for that. I wish I had more time with you all today, but again, happy to show you these on an individual basis as well. We do have these resources. We can track incidents that happen. They can be incidents that happen in your shelter. It can be a way that you track some of your abuse as well with your clients. So what was happening in the incident, and then the workflow that goes with that. Okay, so I can see these different incidents. I can attach them to staff members, clients, and then also perpetrators as well. And I can print these reports, things just like I can do in my DV assessments. I can track referrals here. So I love this screen because it shows you all the different referrals that are given out in our system. it's a report, but it's not in our reporting section, if you will, and I can drill into these referrals as well. So who are my top providers that I refer to? These remind me of like Trivial Pursuit little triangles, if anyone's ever played that game. So I can choose this and I can drill into them. These are my top, that was one of my top providers. And then how many people have we sent to financial services? And then who are those people? Okay, I can say done. It's going to take me back to the previous screen. I can look at a different area, done again, take me back to my main screen. I can filter these. I can export them too as well. Any of the data that you've seen there, I can. In my org tab, I can also do approvals. So as I do my injury screening or my domestic violence screening tool, if I want to have it follow an approval route or a signature that needs to be signed on something, I can set up an approval and have that be tracked through the system. So I can see if there's any approvals. I know I have approval set up for authorization. So let me do that for service request. This is if I want to request funding for my client, maybe it's a rent payment or something like that, then I can put in a service request and then I can have a notification be sent to another staff member and them actually approve that, okay? Or deny it, look at the form, things like that, and it can be routed through the system, just like you can take a memo throughout your organization. I'd love to talk through these today as well, but we're just not going to have time, so I apologize. I'm going to go over here to reporting and talk a little bit about reporting. CaseWorthy, or Casey, of course I do that, I never fails. Casey mentioned CaseBot reporting. CaseBot reporting is our business intelligence tool that we have attached to CaseWorthy. It is inside of our system, and you can build business intelligence reports. You have access to all the data that you enter inside of CaseWorthy, all the tables, and you can build whatever type of reporting you would like. And we'd love to show you this in more detail, but this is a visual of a report that we built that's budget versus actual, and it's kind of this compare and contrast. When this loads on the left-hand side, you'll see the tables or the assessments that I used to create this report. If I expand these out, you can see all the information that's kind of in that intake form. And then I can look at the different assessment data that I brought in as well. I can put in whatever formulas I like. I can update this. I can save it. I can export it. I can add additional options to it once I get built. We built this one out as more of a visual or a chart, but you can absolutely do things that is more like, let's see if I have anything in this report, just rows and columns worth of data. So maybe you want to build a really good report that just has like last name and their race and things like that. If I say run report here, it's going to give me that information that I have. So you can do something really simple, or you can do something more complex. Out of the box, we have reports that come as our operational report. So how many clients, for example, are in a program? These are all included in your baseline CaseWorthy. Okay, how many services has someone received and so on. I like to do services by program here. I have this one saved. And I can run this report. And and more of an SSRS or crystal style report where you have graphics and details and multiple pages where you can do drill ins with this as well. You can still edit this report. We teach you how to do that. So a wide variety of different type of reporting that you can have access to. How many clients are in a specific program? This is basically a form response. And then I do have app builder options to go in and say, I want to change this. Maybe I want to add a phone number. A lot of flexibility. Again, you've seen some complicated report. You've seen some more simple reports. We do have our analytics tool that is like a pivot table, more or less, that allows you to drag and drop different types of data information in here. You have the date and the services here at the top. Maybe I want to format this into a pie chart, or I clicked too much, I apologize. Or a pie or a bar graph or something to that effect. I can do that, and it's going to visually change that for me. It's probably not the best way to look at the data, but maybe I want to bring in, instead of date, I want to bring in my client name, apply that change. Now I have my clients. I can add a filter this report if I want to filter it. and say, I only want to see a particular client or maybe a particular gender. So your analytics tool, this is all the information in your tables when it comes to services to be able to see that. Then you can always build, just like in CaseBot, we have an internal query builder tool. If you're interested to build your own query that way, you can either use CaseBot or you can use our query builder tool. And last but not least, with 1 minute to spare, we do have our compliance reports. So if you're doing any type of federal funding or things that we can help you with when it comes to compliance, you'll find those here. We do have some reports that aren't necessarily federal, but data quality monitoring as well. Did somehow I get duplicate clients in the system, or people putting in their data timely, and so on. So we do have those available as well. I'd love to talk into more detail about setup with you all, but just know that we are going to work with you to set up your organizations, your programs and accounts, and how those are set up, and the tools that we have. You have full configuration rights over your system, okay? And we're going to help you do those. So we'd love to get into more detail about those items with you. So we're at the top of the hour. I'm so glad that you joined us for this hour of this demonstration, this webinar with us today. And we look forward to having some further deeper conversations with you all. Have a great day, and thank you so much.